he was just another man in the crowd. Moving, working, breathing, but not really living. His days passed in a quiet haze of routines and responsibilities. But inside, he was haunted by the echo of choices he didn't make. Not the mistakes, no, he could live with those. It was the silence, the hesitation, the paths not taken that echoed loudest. That night, the city was asleep but restless. He wandered aimlessly through fog-draped streets, until something pulled him toward a narrow alley he'd never noticed before. At the end of it stood a door not new, not ancient, just awaiting. There was no sign, no explanation, but something in his bones told him this door wasn't ordinary. It was a moment, one of those rare moments that whisper, if you walk through, everything could change. He stepped in, and the world outside vanished. The room wasn't a room at all, it was endless. A hall of floating windows, each one showing a version of his life that never happened. One showed him painting by the sea. Another, teaching children in a remote village. Another, still with the woman he let go. None of it was fantasy. It was potential. It was everything that could have been if only he'd said yes. He watched, breathless, as those windows danced around him. One version laughed more, another moved with confidence. One cried openly, but healed stronger. All of them were him, just untouched by fear. He collapsed, overwhelmed, whispering to the silence, "Why are you showing me this now? I can't go back." That's when the room itself responded, not with sound, but with feeling. The answer was gentle but firm: you don't need to go back. You just need to begin. Suddenly, the windows began to dissolve, not in sorrow, but in release. The versions of himself didn't vanish, they merged. Their joy, their courage, their love all returned to him. It wasn't about reliving what he missed. It was about reclaiming what still lived in him. The room was never here to punish him for hesitation. It was here to remind him you are not too late. He blinked and found himself back on the street. Same night, same city, but everything felt different. The world hadn't changed, but he had. He didn't suddenly become a different man, but something had shifted. He was no longer carrying regret, he was carrying resolve. That night, for the first time in years, he picked up a pen and began to write again. The days that followed didn't bring miracles, but they brought momentum. A phone call he'd been afraid to make. A job application he almost didn't send. A dinner with an old friend he thought he'd lost. Each tiny action opened a new window, not in some magical room, but in real life. He didn't chase lost dreams anymore. He started planting new ones. Redemption isn't about undoing the past. It's about no longer being its prisoner. It's understanding that the version of you who paused, who hesitated, who feared, that version was only waiting for you to come back for him. And now that you have, he can finally move forward. Years later, people asked him how he turned his life around. He smiled and said, "I once found a room filled with the lives I didn't live. I thought I was being shown what I lost, but I was really being reminded of who I still could become." The room wasn't real, but the awakening was. Because sometimes the second chance isn't about finding a new door. It's about finally walking through the one that's been inside you all along. Maybe you're standing outside that door right now. Maybe you think it's too late, too far gone, too broken to be fixed. But you're here listening. And that means the room is open, regret is heavy, but you're allowed to set it down. Begin again, not because you've failed, but because you've grown. And that growth, that's your second chance.